future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Hi everyone, Dr. Judy here, and I'm very excited to announce that we're going in a very interesting direction. We are going global, we are going deeper, and we are going cross-cultural. And I'm here tonight to also introduce you to one of my wonderful team members at the Psychological Healing Center, Dr. Irene Yaimajian.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Judy.
Inch besses. We are going cross-cultural, and tonight we are going to be doing our episode on family dysfunction, Armenian style. And I want to talk a little bit about cultural wounds because, as many of you know, my mind map system, which was originally intended to heal global disconnect, that was the consciousness behind the mind map. And I realized soon in that I had to go back down to a very micro level to go to a macro level, because you can't do a macro picture until you heal the human disconnect on a very basic level, starting with mother-infant disconnect, father-infant disconnect, family disconnect, cultural disconnect,
Absolutely.
and then it goes global from there.
Yep.
So Dr. Irene
Yes, Dr. Judy.
is one of the interns at the Psychological Healing Center, and she sees people at our Sherman Oaks office, our Beverly Hills office, and also Skype therapy and phone therapy.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you
We
being
do
here.
it all. That's the beauty of the Psychological Healing Center is, we come to you. We make sure you get therapy when you need it.
And you are trained in the mind map therapy, and
Absolutely.
I'm going to explain the mind map for those of you who have never heard the show, or even those who have. The mind map is really a pathway for healing, and it's a from through to model. And let me know when the mind map is up so I can, very great. Okay, so the top third of the mind map represents the past, our wounds of childhood, which there are 5 of. Sexual, physical, emotional abuse, smothering, and neglect. And it's impossible to get out of childhood unscathed. It just doesn't work that way. And so at whatever level we're wounded, we're going to have reactions to that wound, whether we shut down or go somatic, or if we are wounded so badly we can start to emotionally die and physically and disconnect. Yeah. So how do we prevent that? People who are going to be parents out there, or people who are parents, just remember that the opposite of disconnect, obviously, is human connection. And so through human connection, eye contact, skin contact, breastfeeding your babies, staying at home, giving them good enough, unconditional loving, this is what connects us and builds those fibers, those neurotransmitters to really transmit and help us form emotional development, cognitive development, physical health, and so on. And so when all of these wounds of childhood get soaked into the fiber of our being, and then they implant into the fiber of our being, we then encode it into what we talk about at our center, negative core beliefs.
Panel 3.
Panel, thank you
That's
very
it.
much. Panel 3.
It's our favorite panel.
Yeah, sure. Okay, and if we don't dismantle panel 3, Dr. Irene, what do you see happening if we don't dismantle it?
The person starts to dismantle themselves.
Exactly.
It's so important to understand your negative core beliefs, because those are things that you've either been told or you've been telling yourself and you've internalized, and it's become a part of you, basically. And if you say something, I always tell my patients, if you say something enough, you start to believe it. So let's start to break it down and develop some better ones.
Some better ones,
Yeah.
and first off recognize that the ones that we have incorporated into the fiber, I call them the psychovirus.
Yes.
Okay, psychovirus encodes, and then we believe things like we're stupid, we're not good enough, we're not lovable, we're not important, and on and on and on. And tonight we're going to talk about these core beliefs and the chaos, defenses, and breakdowns that come about as a result of cultural wounds, specifically Armenian wounds. So just to finish up the mind map, the first third is the past, the middle is the chaos, defenses, and breakdowns of the here and now, which is why people come to therapy. Why? Because their relationships are not working, because they're having trouble on the job, because they're having all kinds of symptoms like smoking or overeating or drinking too much or going into horrible relationship patterns.
Anxiety and depression and all that.
All of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All of that.
And family dysfunction. It kind of overflows into the family.
Very much so. So you can begin to see that everything is interconnected. We are interconnected, and that's why I'm so fascinated with healing global disconnect, because the butterfly theory, you see, if the butterfly flaps its wings in Peru, then that reverberation is going to be felt as a metaphor for we do impact each other. And
The collective unconscious,
Very
as
much so.
Jungians like to call it.
thank you. Thank you. And so we're going to go into the Armenian culture. You happen to be Armenian, so
I
you know
am.
all about it.
I am.
And the beauty of it is that we are international. And so if you are Armenian, happen to know people who are Armenian, the therapy itself can be conducted by
In
Dr. Irene
In Armenian. That's the beauty of it. We can really, with my patients, I could translate it to Armenian where we can understand it no matter what language you use it in. It could be used across the world. And I think it's such a wonderful tool to have. I mean, just to kind of give you a little bit of my insight, if I may.
Please.
I've been trained in analysis, and so I usually did long-term therapy. And when you trained me in mind map therapy, I was just like, this is amazing, because especially in our culture, we want things now. We want to figure it out now. We're fixers. We don't want to sit there and linger on it.
Sure.
Well, some of us could be neurotic and
Yeah.
linger on it. But, we want to, when patients bring their children or they come in for couples therapy, they want to know, like, what could we do to fix our problems? And
Exactly.
mind map just goes straight into it, where panel 1, well, this is your wounds, this is where it comes from. Panel 2, your reactions. Panel 3, your negative core beliefs and how they tell each other. So I think it's wonderful. I've seen it do such a
So
great job.
I'm very interested to know, and we're going to delve into multicultural wounds. And again, these wounds are not just wounds of childhood. These are multi-generational culturally that trickle down into the here and now.
Yeah.
So let's go into it.
Let's do it.
Dig right into the mind map,
Yeah.
Armenian style, okay? And if you're not Armenian, it doesn't matter. Just apply it to whatever nationality, culture you are. Okay, so what are some of the wounds of childhood from an Armenian generally, and of course we're generalizing, not every
Yeah.
family is like this, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I mean, when you look at the Armenian culture, there are so many wounds that come from our ancestors. You know, I mean, you can go all the way back to the Armenian genocide, you know, and the huge wound that it caused in the Armenian community and in our tiny little country that we have such pride for, which is amazing, you know. And so one of those that's a huge wound that was just instilled into the Armenian culture, where you can't do it on your own, we're going to take over you. And so that's I think that is where a lot of the pride and a lot of the strength comes from. Maybe sometimes we would see us being a little reactive.
Okay.
And maybe it comes from our ancestors fighting for their rights and wanting proving themselves. So I think that's one wound.
Okay, so question. Being that Armenia is landlocked, is it not? Or is it on the ocean? Or
No.
It does. It's
I don't think-
landlocked. In
yeah.
other words, it's
I
not
believe so.
a coastal country.
Mm-hmm.
And I, being from Hungary, I'm also from a country that is landlocked.
Yeah.
And my sense of it is that the smaller landlocked countries have a lot more to lose in terms of, they can't escape, right? Speaking of the double dungeon, they're just locked in there. And so it would make sense that there would be a lot more fear and a lot more paranoia and a
Yeah.
lot more vulnerability.
Yeah, really appreciating the things you have and just keeping them close to you.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And I mean, there's a lot that comes out of it, but yeah. So, I mean, moving forward with the wounds, some of the
Yes.
things that we look at, when you look at how child rearing, is in our culture, the roles and the gender roles of
Yeah.
men and women, and there's such a split
Okay.
between men and women and
Okay.
our responsibilities and how we kind of struggle now. I see it in a lot of my patients, especially the younger adults,
Okay.
but a lot in the women.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe because the men aren't very proactive at getting therapy or speaking up.
Okay.
But
Although I've had several
Yeah.
male clients
yeah,
that
we
are
do have a lot of
Armenian. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not gotten any, that I work with a lot of with the women. And so I've really seen a major wound there, where they are really like disconnected from themselves. They're trying to figure out, how they're going to be a mother, how they're going to meet their cultural expectations while at the same time differentiate from their families and become their own person.
So go back to the early phase of life. So in the Armenian culture, we talk about 5 wounds. Physical, sexual, emotional abuse, smothering, and neglect. What do you think is most prevalent in the Armenian culture?
Definitely smothering, which is
Okay.
mothering.
Smothering.
Smothering, yes.
Right.
Absolutely. And really more so towards the from mothers to sons. You see that a lot. Because there is a little bit of a difference in between being the male or the female in the family.
So would you say there might be a little bit of enmeshment involved?
Oh, absolutely. Fusion and enmeshment. We are
Okay.
one big soup in our
One
family.
soup. Okay, so let me just put a little bit more theory into it. I did say we're going to go deeper, and there was a theoretician, psychologist by the name of Murray Bowen, who talked about the multi-generational transmission process. So, of course, I borrow a lot from the thinking. And he talks about separation and individuation to the point where if you don't separate and individuate, what happens?
Well, you become stuck and anxiety starts to build.
Absolutely.
And I think that actually, I mean, not to jump forward, but that's so prevalent in our community where, I mean, when you look at our families, a male and a female, they get married, and they typically, not all, but typically will move in with the groom's family.
Okay.
So look at that fusion starting,
Yeah.
the mother-in-law, the mother-in-law typically is the manager of the house. They manage everything.
Okay.
And as the woman, you have, whether you have a job or not, you have to take care of the household. And so now not only are you taking care of your husband and your kids, but you're also taking care of the mom and the dad, and so it's all the fusion in our family we sometimes tend to lose ourselves in it, you know, no privacy sometimes.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to trace it all the way back. So typically in an American Armenian culture, do mothers breastfeed? Do they stay at home? Are the children raised by the family? Are they taken to child care? Is that popular in the Armenian culture?
That's a very good question, actually, that you're asking. Typically, yes, it is frowned upon for a mother to choose their career over their child because the responsibility of the mother is child rearing, you know.
See. Okay.
If the mother is not there, it's, you know, the mother-in-law or the grandparents, but mainly it is the mother's job to do the responsibility to rear children. And so one of the major things that we see with our patients at the Psychological Healing Center is, you know, do I give up my career for my child, and do I take them to daycare, and do I You'll see a lot of families now, you know, that are able to take them to daycare, but it'll be Armenian daycares.
Armenian daycares, okay. Yeah. All right, so with that said, when they're in the American culture, how does that work? Because their girlfriends are not obligated to take care of their mother-in-law. They're not enmeshed with their family. So now they're in an American community, and they're hearing that there's a lot more freedom and a lot more individualization, so to speak. So what happens?
It's that's also a very good question. You know, Armenian people, we as a community, we're very close-knit, and we're very proud of our culture. We're very close-knit. We're very family-oriented people. So regardless where you'll find us in the world, you will always find us with our family. And we you know, and especially as women, we carry the tradition and the culture, and we carry it on our shoulders. You know, it's our job to carry that tradition to our children and to teach them how it's supposed to be, you know. But being in America, let's say Americanized, you know, we get acculturated. We have to.
Okay.
So I mean, that's a really huge struggle, and I have a few patients where that's the biggest struggle with them, where we live here, where, you know, and some of them are born here, but their family has not been born here, and so they struggle inside because of the guilt and the shame that they feel, where I want to have my life, I want to have my career, but I shouldn't be getting married in my 30s, and I really need to have kids, and when I do have a kid, I can't choose my career over my kid.
Right.
So having American friends or having friends from other cultures, I think we will usually always tend to go back to our roots and say, no, we need to stick to our family.
Right. So it's that deep. It's, which, you know, I talk so much about healing human disconnect. If anybody noticed the new tune that I had written for this show, I'm just very happy about. Just the words are healing human disconnect.
Yeah.
And so
we need a lot of healing in our community.
We really do. And at the same time, there's a really delicate balance between connection and enmeshment, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so, by the way, this is a call-in show, and if you'd like to call in, please do so, 323-843-2826, and you can have 2 shrinks for the price of 1 tonight. So pick our brain, we will connect the dots, and you don't even have to be Armenian to call in. And the theme, of course, is how cultural injuries overlay upon the human disconnect and the wounds of childhood. So going back to the topic of the Armenian culture, I'm just going to pick a case in mind.
Let's do it.
No names, no identities revealed. General theme being that the woman is the responsible, mature one. The man is the one who's kind of a child in this case, and he goes out at night and drinks and does his thing and comes back very late in the, or I would say very early in the morning, not even late at night, okay? So this is beyond. Yeah. And what happens is that the woman feels a sense of obligation to keep this going. However, there comes a point where she's breaking down because she's overworked and she's not supported, and she's afraid that she's married to somebody who will get in a car accident or be so drunk as to not remember whether he even slept with somebody else other than her. And it becomes a real point of a disconnect. And then, of course, is the family pressure for her to stay married.
Yeah.
And then the layer of this, it's, the plot thickens, right? And now she feels terribly guilty that she doesn't want the family. And the mother-in-law chimes in and says, this is not okay for you to divorce my son. And she's thinking, oh my God, I have to live with this train wreck for the rest of my life. And she says, yes, you're not mature, because if you were a mature woman, you're too Americanized. Oh, that's a very good statement. You're too Americanized, and we don't divorce in this family. And men are like this. So don't dream. Don't be so idealistic, accept. So is this common?
Yeah. So I think there is an extreme in every culture and in every ethnicity.
Okay.
We have wonderful Armenian men, and we have not so wonderful Armenian men. I mean, that's it goes across the world.
Of course.
One of the things that I would like to kind of put in there is I don't think Armenian men or boys, they get enough credit towards, one of the biggest things that I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot is, and I have 4 brothers, so
okay.
I've seen it a lot within them, where in the Armenian household, a son, is supposed to basically emulate their father and how amazing their father is. And in a more, when you look at Latino or Spanish cultures, there is the machismo, where you have to be the man, the macho man.
Sure.
But it's almost like nobody talks about how the males in the Armenian culture, culture, they can almost never meet the standards of their father. They try hard to do better than their father, and everything since the day they're born. It's almost like the day you're born, especially if you're the male, it's like you're put on a pedestal. Every child is put on a pedestal in the Armenian family, but more so a male that I've seen. And what ends up happening is, you're taught like, well, now you're going to take care of the family, and there is really, I have not really seen, at least, a lot of emotional support towards males,
From who?
fathers.
Father, son. Okay, so see, we are always in the mind map system talking about systems gone wrong. Dysfunctional systems. And so the way this all interconnects and interplays is that if the son is not being esteemed by the father, let's say, is that pretty much what you're saying?
Yeah.
Then what kind of core beliefs would you say are outcomes of this particular type of fathering?
Well, I mean, I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough, and it's now I have the responsibility to do everything and anything possible, to take care of my family, not to take care of myself and to take care of my wife and my kids in the future, but to take care of everyone, including my mom, my dad, my grandparents. We don't. A lot. I mean, we don't. We're not in our culture. We don't send our grandparents or our parents off to retirement homes or anything like that. We take care of them in our homes until their last days.
That's very similar in the way that I grew up as well. Yeah. There's no retirement. The retirement is the door, the room next door where they're dying, and we take care of them until they pass.
Yeah.
So some cultures really support that, and then other cultures don't, and then there are all these individual differences. So when we're talking about this, then just please understand that there's so many individual differences here. And just because we're talking about the Armenian culture or any kind of culture, there's so many other forces that interplay, like how long people have been in America, for example.
The acculturation level.
Yes.
I mean, speak of death till death do us part,
right.
Right. We even stick with our grandparents, so to not go off the topic about the case, where, there is a lot of guilt and shame of, instilled in women, and I think in men as well, where more so in women I've seen, where, no, you have to work it out. You know,
Okay.
no matter what, you
No
have to work it
matter
out.
what?
And no matter what,
Alcoholism, no matter
no
what?
matter
Domestic violence,
no
no matter
what.
what? That's
Yeah.
a real big
Because
no matter what.
because then
Uh-huh.
we care about the vision and the picture that people have of our families. We want to make sure that our families
Okay.
are good, not only just look good, but are good, and we're stuck together. So if
okay.
someone gets a divorce, that means it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And so
That's a horrible reflection on the family as well, and it
Yeah.
brings a lot of shame to
where
the
you're
family.
weak, you didn't try hard enough, you know, and it's tough.
So from we talk a lot about the mother and the blueprint of the mother and the blueprint of the father, which is very different in this regard because the mother's blueprinting one thing to the son, which is what?
That you need to take care of the family, and that also you could go out and do whatever you'd like, and you know, enjoy your life. Where with the daughter, it's more you need to be traditional, you need to be conservative. I mean, we don't really talk about sex in our families whatsoever, which I think is a very, very huge downfall.
Mm-hmm. And so, what do you think the negative core beliefs revolving around the women in the Armenian culture land as?
Sometimes, what I've heard at least is, you know, I'm not good enough. I'm not
good
worthy. And a lot of I can't say that. But yeah, I'm not good enough is a really big one that comes up. And a lot of guilt and shame.
Okay. So then looking at what happens when these children get older and they start dating, what are some of the rules and roles around the dating process?
Oh, the dating. What is that? We don't date. We
You
just
don't
get
date.
married. No,
That's right.
no, our families, you know, we're very family oriented people. So we don't want to waste our time, especially I mean, until now, there are sometimes, at times, arranged marriages, you know? More so, I think, in Armenia rather than here in America.
Okay.
But, you know, there's sometimes things will happen, like an Armenian mother will be at, the hair salon and we'll see a really pretty girl, you know, and then they'll talk, oh, you're perfect for my son, and then they'll end up meeting, and everyone knows what's going on.
Right.
But, you know, and then I think, more so the guy has the call of he's gonna call her or not, but there's some really old-fashioned things that we still do, you know. But dating wise, women are not really allowed to date because it's frowned upon. You shouldn't be dating a lot of men. You know, you should respect yourself, your body. You should be held together, and which I think is a beautiful thing, you know.
Yes.
But at the same time, you know, we live in a different kind of world now. But the men, they can date as much as they want.
So double standards.
Yeah.
And what happens when women do what the men do? How are they seen? I think I know the answer to that, but
it depends. I mean, I think it has to do also with the woman and how she presents herself. You know, this is my life. I'm going to do whatever I want.
Okay.
Or she allows it to get to her.
Okay.
And then just drowns in the sorrow and the guilt and the shame of her family, you know. So it could go both ways, but I think it's all in the way that the woman actually takes it and what they do with it. They have to also respect themselves, but they also have to respect their family.
Is it really different growing up in Armenia? I think you're from Yerevan.
Yeah, I was born in Yerevan. I
Where
came
did you
here when I
leave?
was 2.
2. Okay.
Yeah. My christening was there, and then I came here. So,
okay.
But my family was Catholic. My grandmother is Arabic, and you know my dad's side is Armenian. My dad's side's Armenian. My mom's side's more Arabic.
So what year was the Armenian genocide?
1915.
1915.
Yes.
Okay, and this has had a profound effect on the Armenian culture, and so
Yeah.
I know we tend to talk a lot about the darkness. We'll get to the light because there's a lot of light in the Armenian culture.
Absolutely.
So much beauty there,
Yes.
and fun and great food and so on. Is there a call-in? Oh,
wonderful.
please bring it. Okay, hello. You are on Dr. Judy WTF.
All right, hello there.
Hello.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
So I feel that traditions have kind of a little bit faded overall in all cultures, but I just want to ask a specific question about the Armenian one. Do you practice in a lot of the majority of the family homes? Do you guys still practice the nuclear family?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Do you see it? Do you see that it's fading within certain families, especially with it sometimes becoming Americanized?
It depends. I mean, I've seen more families be nuclear rather than, you know, that's a really good question, actually, now that I think about it. I think we're more held
Well,
together
the
rather than
reason,
dispersed. Uh huh.
yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's
The
okay.
reason I say this is because I study politics very greatly, and I've studied the economy especially. I've seen that costs have especially went up within living costs, especially in the state of California, tax rates especially. But I can talk about that for hours, but I don't want to hog up the phone part of the talk. But
Mm-hmm.
my main point is that I personally feel that, especially ever since the kind of decline of the nuclear family overall in American households, I think that, especially within the Armenian community, it still is kind of stronger in comparison to many others.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
What
Yes.
is your name, please?
My name is Ryan.
Ryan, thank you. And where are you calling from? What part of the world you live in?
Oh, I'm calling from Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Okay. As the main theme of this entire system revolves around human disconnect, I think it's excellent that we're looking at the way cultures treat human connection. So, Ryan, are you saying that in cultures, from your point of view, your political or economic point of view, the cultures that stay together economically are stronger? Is that something that you're seeing?
Well, my standpoint from it all philosophically, I feel that the best way to grow the economy, or just through any political sense, or any person with any stand on the political spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
I think they can agree that we're better together in a stronger way, especially with our own people, and especially, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the traditions are probably the most important, if not the most important thing, along
Mm-hmm.
with the traditional American family.
I have to agree.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and again, we are one. We're all interconnected, but that doesn't mean that we're the same. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think sameness from a health point of view, because I'm very interested in sanity as being a psychologist, and I think sanity is connection, because even these scientists that are looking at interconnectivity in the brain are seeing that when we're not touched, when we don't have the eye contact and the skin contact, there's a real human disconnection, and it
Mm-hmm.
interferes with everything. And who is the number one connector in our global world? The family, the nuclear family. And when that starts to disintegrate, a lot of things start to disintegrate. So I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate your bringing this forth. And we are going to continue along the theme of global disconnect as the macro picture, and mother infant father infant disconnect, and
Mm-hmm.
how this all interplays. And I really appreciate your call. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right, have a nice night.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
You do the same.
Thank you, Ryan. I think as you say that, it comes up.
Yeah.
One of the biggest disconnects is the father daughter relationship.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, they're real. I don't really. They're. It's not strong enough. It's almost most of the daughters, or most of the females that I work with and I meet, tend to almost be afraid to talk to their fathers. And so who do we turn to? How do we, what kind of male do we emulate if we can't talk to our fathers? So do we find a man that we can't talk to?
Well, that's what the Freud theme is,
Yeah.
right? Repetitive patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have another call in? Thank you so much.
For calling in.
Hi, you are
Hi.
on the couch with the double doctors here.
Say that it comes up, Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for calling in. What's your
Hi.
name?
Hi, Dr. Judy. Yeah, this is Anastasia.
Hi.
managed-
How are you?
Yeah, I managed to call. I'm listening to you live,
Yeah.
and I'm very happy to. I just call in to say that I'm excited about this. I don't know, this update of the files of of the show, and hello, Dr. Irene.
Hello.
I have to say that listening to you speaking reminded me of how our culture, Greek and Cyprus culture works. Like the roles in the family, and the women are shamed and blamed, and the men they have to take care of the family, but on the other hand, they are allowed to go out and do whatever they want, basically, and not really being judged. And when the women want to end a marriage that doesn't work, they are shamed and blamed by society. And what you said, that you have to make it work, that's the same here. I mean, unless the husband really beats you up and he's an alcoholic and does really bad stuff, you really have to make it work out. Not so much now, it's more modern, the families now, but in some places, in some families, this is the system.
Would you say that there's a real parallel between what Dr. Irene is describing as cultural rules and norms in the Armenian culture and similar to Greek culture, particularly
Yes,
where you are?
yes, definitely,
Yes.
definitely. It's closed society, conservative, is family orientated, which is not a bad thing. It's really good thing, but the bad thing, in my opinion, is that most of the families are dysfunctional, and this keeps going on and on and on. And if someone disagrees, and if someone is challenging the system because they see things, that's unacceptable, you know. And
Well, we talk about.
So I have a question for both of you, actually. Okay, and the question is that I've talked about this a lot. I talk about this in therapy sessions, that just because something is culturally correct, it doesn't make it mentally healthy. Okay.
Yes.
So, so culture, people will come to me all the time and say this and this and this, and my culture says this and this and this. And I have to step back, of course, because I have to look at it from the mental health point of view and say, okay, that's beautiful. I'm happy that you're in this gorgeous culture. It's just that what your culture is saying, or the rules and the norms of the culture, are really against mental health. So my question is, what happens to people who want to seek psychological services, and all of a sudden they go back into the system and they start complaining, I feel that I'm a little too enmeshed with you, Mom, and I want to pull back, or, Dad, I think that we don't have enough of a connection, and now I want more of a connection, or whatever it is that's kind of now going against the grain of the culture. So do you think that this puts pressure on people maybe not to seek psychotherapy because better, don't ruffle the feathers, just leave it alone?
Yes, don't rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't challenge the system. And nowadays, people do seek do go to psychologists and have therapies, but even now, deep down, the majority of people where I live, what they really think is that, oh, he must be crazy, There's something wrong with him.
Yeah.
Some people try to show up as modern, as European, and accepting this. And there are many people that are actually up to date with 2017. But there are many which are not. Yeah.
Okay,
so... And what you said, Dr. Judy, what you said about if you go to your father or your mother and ask them, we don't really have a connection. Most of them probably don't get it. They don't. Because,
I 100% agree with you. And there
yeah,
is... go ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
No, please.
And what they define as connecting, quote unquote, is that, what do you mean? You're ungrateful. I feed you. I pay money to study you. I take you to doctors. All this, and they do this really well. Most of the families, yeah. They are really taking care of the physical needs of the children and all this stuff. But emotionally, I believe that there is a problem, and this problem, of course, goes on because these people having their kids and And what I see, it really upsets me, is that
That's
even
the
young
part that needs
people,
to
even though
change.
they started to read and to go for therapy, and really don't feel shame about that, there are many more that are still stuck, and young people that are just repeating the patterns that they have been infiltrated with
So,
during their
so,
childhood.
so with that said, I think there's got to be a way where people who are coming to therapy, seeking therapy, seeing more through a clear lens of perception, as I like to put it, versus the cracked lens of perception. Still, they have to be taught how to communicate with parents who are in a different mindset. They're thinking, we're wonderful parents. We feed you, we clothe you, we take you to the doctor. What are you so ungrateful? Just like what you're saying. So there's got to be a way maybe that therapy itself has to beef up their way of communicating and helping people to communicate so that through the therapeutic growth of the person, they don't create more disconnect.
Yeah.
Very important to take this into consideration.
If I
but
may.
it takes two to tangle, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah,
does.
and most of the time we have to really look at the homeostasis of any family. We're functionally dysfunctional. I always like to use that with our. It's like,
amazing.
we're
That's
dysfunctional, but
what
we know how
happens
to
here.
work it. I know how to talk to my mom or my dad, and to you it might not sound right or seem right, but I know how to communicate with them. Not to you, just to like somebody who's not in the family. So one of the things is, okay, well, we can't change our parents because our parents are doing the best that they possibly can. And according to
Although
them, as
some
long as
people, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
although I've had so many people say, no, they're not. They're not doing the best that they can do. They're doing the worst that they can.
So
but
now
I
they look
get
at
what you're saying.
themselves. They have to reflect on themselves. So what are you doing to make your new family different? And how are you going to change it?
Right.
Do you sit there and complain and blame everything on your parents? Or do you blame your parents, then work through it? Which is what we're doing in therapy, which is the beauty of therapy, especially mind mapping.
And it's just a little course correction. We're not blaming. We're actually taking out the poison of the psychoviruses that they blueprinted us on. So in order to
Yes.
do that, as you know, we have to really take inventory on all the damages that occurred, and then reprocess those feelings with therapeutically, not with the parents. Because I want to emphasize that you don't go to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, you did this. Because most of the time they're going to either get really defensive, or they're going to slap you up the side of your head, or something, but they're definitely not going to be therapeutic, because it's very difficult for a person who was the cause of the damage, and again, not fault, domino effects, cause, because they didn't learn how to clean themselves of their childhood wounds. It's very hard for the person who did this damage to be the healer. And
Yeah.
that's why therapy
Yes.
is right, because you can't go to them
Yes.
and say, you damaged me, now heal me. It's like, duh, I don't know how to do that. I just know how to do this.
So you heal yourself, but then that you also, the greatest thing in therapy, which I think a lot of people miss, whether it's in the Armenian community or in any community, is that you not only start to heal within yourself, and then you start to heal your own family, not your mom and dad, not your grandparents, but your own, the relationship between you and your husband, the relationship between you and your children, and you're not, if you don't learn about it, you never know, and then you don't know how to fix it. But
Yes, that's definitely is not a blaming situation, but what I'm saying is that most people are denying even acknowledging that their parents had made mistakes, because it wasn't their fault again, because they were raised by their parents and their parents. And as Dr. Judy says, is a generation transmission process.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But they need to have their parents on a pedestal forever.
yeah,
Forever.
Even the slightest, that's what I think is problematic.
Yeah, I'm going to
Because then
expand on that.
you cannot heal, you cannot see, and then you inevitably gonna repeat the same patterns, isn't it, Doctor?
It's sure you know it. you're connecting all the dots. I know that we're getting very short on time, so I really, really appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much for all your
you.
kind support. And
I thank you very much.
my
And
pleasure.
I just wanted to say to the people that are listening that you're doing an amazing job. And I
Thank
just
you.
saw it with myself, and I already seen results. I've been studying reading your book and listening to your shows for the past 6 months, and I was really believing that I could make it on my own because I was learning things and I had aha moments and epiphanies and all the stuff up to a point, and then that I realized that okay, I got myself psychoeducated, but what's next? The anger is still there, and the injuries are still there. So that's where you came in, and that's where a person needs to go to an actual therapy through this mind map.
Thank
Especially,
you.
I'm talking
Thank you.
about this one.
It does
No,
take a
so
lot of processing. So thank you for calling in.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Take
right.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So for those of you listening, you can get the Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect at Amazon.com or at the website drjudywtf.com. And I'm just finishing the 9-panel mind map video Journey to Healing, which hopefully will be done in about a month or two. And very excited. My little grandson will be in there, and so a lot of new topics coming up, and members of the Psychological Healing Center, which you will be meeting. So I think it's time to shrink that tune. Okay, let's get to shrinking that tune. And for those of you who have heard the shrinking that tune, we're going to be mind mapping the tune. And unfortunately, we're not going to be playing out the tune because we don't want to be docked by Facebook and YouTube, I believe. So we've got to cut it out. But go online and hear the tune. I'm in Here by Sia. So you're going to help me mind map this, okay?
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. I'm here. Can anyone see me? Can anybody help? I'm in here, a prisoner of history. Can anyone help? Go ahead, Dr. Irene.
I mean, the prisoner of history. You know, we are always so tied up in our past and the way our family does things. And I think one of the things that we find hard is incorporating our tradition into this new found freedom that we have as young individuals, young Armenian individuals.
So there's the family cultural injury. Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all of the sadness I cannot living inside of me. Doesn't that remind you of the double dungeon of darkness that I often refer to?
Absolutely, and not being able to express how you feel because you're afraid of hurting your family members, you know. As the young individual in the family, you know, don't express that you're sad or happy or mad or whatever it is, especially if you're sad, because your parents are going through some stuff that are more important.
So I'm in here. I'm trying to tell you something. Can anybody help? I'm in here. I'm calling up, but you can't hear me. Can anyone help? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all of the sadness I cannot living inside of me. What beautiful words.
Yeah, this is like somebody coming to therapy. This is somebody singing to their therapist. You know, hold on to my sadness because it's too much and no one hears me.
And that's one of the things that we do for our patients is we contain their feelings because good enough mothers are supposed to contain feelings and not burden their children with an overwhelm of them.
And not make them feel guilty for feeling the way they do.
Right. I'm crying out for breaking down. I'm fearing it all, stuck inside these walls. Tell me there is hope for me. Is somebody out there listening? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all the sadness I cannot living inside of me. And I think there's just more chorus. I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold living inside of me. I'm here. Can anybody see me? Can anybody help me? So mind map that one.
I mean, I think that goes very deep into both males and females in the Armenian community, where males need to feel like they are strong and they can provide and they can take care of, because that is the light of our culture.
Absolutely.
That men love to take care of their family and their women and buy them beautiful things and make them love. And females, the women love to caretake and take care of their children and focus on their family and, contribute as much as they can and serve, serve and take care of their men.
And
so
serve is not a dirty word in the Armenian culture.
It's not. We love to. I mean, have you been to an Armenian house as a guest?
Doesn't mean slavery, by the way.
No. I think if we may, put up the light for our own culture too, even though there's a lot of wounds, and hopefully we can open up to therapy and help ourselves. We are helping ourselves when we're in therapy. There's also the light, and one of the light about Armenian culture is we are very family oriented, and our traditions are always going to be there, and we just love to please and take care of people.
And the culture and the family unit's so important, so foundationally healthy. And so this show has been sponsored by the Psychological Healing Center, and today we have had guest Dr. Irene Yaimadian, and really appreciate her. She's done excellent work, and she is available to connect with. And if you're Armenian, she'll conduct the sessions in Armenian. So thank you, everyone, and really appreciate you. And I'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.